Well, I got really nothing clever to really say in this intro here because it is what it is, but, the second round, the Hitmen playoff train has hit the end of the line here. So anyway, stay tuned for another episode of Hi there, it's Brett Hornby here. Welcome to another episode of my Calgary Hitmen in the WHL playoffs. Here we are up to episode number 17 here, and as you probably might have saw in the gist of the opening there, and maybe if you saw in the thumbnail here, this was going to be my last Calgary Hitmen recap video here for the 2018-19 season and my first season doing this here. And as I say, it's been fun recapping Calgary sports as I got more active on YouTube here, but fortunately the Calgary Hitmen playoff train has ran out of steam, ran out of gas, or everyone's run out of money to pay to continue the train going forward here. As I say, I'm going to recap the second round series here that the Calgary Hitmen had with the Edmonton Oil Kings here, and I mean, despite the sweep here, as spoiler, we got swept here. A couple games, could have went either way here. That could have made it more of a series here, but I'll just bring up my notes here and let's follow along here on what happened in the 4 games that the Calgary Hitmen and the Edmonton Oil Kings have had here. So anyway, if you enjoy everything I do on my YouTube channel, just make sure you hit like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon to be notified of everything I do on my YouTube channel. I mean, right now it's primarily all my sports content here. I mean, well, we'll be wrapping up my Calgary Hitmen year, but, Flames are in the playoffs here, and Calgary Roughnecks will be in the playoffs here, so it'll primarily be Flames and Hitmen now. After the Hitmen here, Flames and Roughnecks, and any other side stuff I do, I'll be more active in that in the summer here when football season starts, but I only recap the Stampeders monthly here. So anyway, here we are. As you follow my previous episode 16, where we previewed the upcoming series that the Calgary Hitmen and the Edmonton Oil Kings had after the Calgary Hitmen beat the Lethbridge Hurricanes in the first round in 7 games, and the Edmonton Oil Kings beat the Medicine Tigers in 6 games in their respective series there. This series looked like it was going to be another mismatch here based on the regular season series. Excuse me here, but pretty much it continued on in the playoffs here, but there were a couple close games and then a couple games that we weren't even in it. So let's recap the series here. So game 1, this happened on Saturday, April the 6th. The series started up in Edmonton there because they were the top seed in the Central Division there. So it was a 7 p.m. puck drop at the Rogers Place there. And actually, things actually looked good for the Calgary Hitmen early here as it lived up to the Bell of Alberta here. And, it stayed 0-0. There was no scoring in the first period here, and that's probably exactly what the Calgary Hitmen would want to start off the series with the Edmonton Oil Kings. Keep it close, 0-0, try to keep it in here. And in fact, actually, the Calgary Hitmen in the second period here scored the first goal of the series here at about the 10-minute mark, as Caden Elder, one of the 20-year-olds that's graduating this season after the playoffs, is scored here, gets his second of the playoffs, and it was 1-0 for the Calgary Hitmen, and it was 1-0 for the Hitmen after 2 periods here. And in fact, Calgary, even though had the lead here, Edmonton had a little bit of an edge in shots here, but Jack Benoit, fresh off of his strong performance in a couple games there against the Lethbridge Hurricanes was up to the task there. So Jack Manon was keeping the Calgary Hitmen in it and protecting the lead here. And actually in the third period here, the Calgary Hitmen went up 2-0 here with another graduate. Luke Coleman scored his 4th of the season at the 7-minute mark. So it was 2-0 Calgary Hitmen in the third period here. And next question we ask is, could the Calgary Hitmen hang on here? But as you got the gist of the opening here, things turned for the worse for the Calgary Hitmen, and the Edmonton Oil Kings eventually rallied back here. As the Edmonton Oil Kings actually it wasn't until the 60-minute mark of the third period they got on the board when Parker Gallis scores to make it 2-1 for the Hitmen there. And then earlier, with just 13 seconds left in the third period there, goalie pulled extra attacker here, Jake Neighbors ties the game up at 2-2. And just like the first game in the Lethbridge series, we needed some overtime here. And here we are in overtime here, similar script. It had the similar result here as Jake Neighbors, who scored the tying goal with 13 seconds again, of course, scores again in overtime at the 3:20-minute mark of the overtime to give the Edmonton Oil Kings a 3-2 come-from-behind victory and a 1-0 series lead there. So the Calgary Hitmen hung in there with the Edmonton Oil Kings, but unfortunately got a little sloppy there at the end, and the Oil Kings came back and tied it up and went in overtime here. And also, the Oil Kings also had the edge in shots overall here, as the Calgary Hitmen was outshot 33-24 overall, and actually in overtime here, the Edmonton Oil Kings outshot Calgary 3-0 there. So Edmonton definitely was determined to win in overtime after they got the momentum and ended early there. So tough way to start off the Battle of Alberta here. But, I'm going to say Jack Manon did play well. Dylan Misko is the Oil Kings goalie, and he definitely has had our number all season there, because if you go back to episode 16 there, I think I recall he was 6-0 against the Calgary Hitmen in the regular season series here. So basically it's deja vu here. And will it be deja vu again with Game 2 here, as it happened on Sunday, April the 7th. Once again, it was up in Edmonton at Rogers Place with a 5 p.m. puck drop. Basically, the Calgary Hitmen were looking to at least build on some positives here from Game 1 and try to tie this thing up coming to Calgary here, but however, it didn't happen, as the Edmonton Oil Kings had other plans here, and they started off strong and didn't look back here, as Edmonton scored quickly first. Quinn Benjafield, one of their top scorers, scored at the 9-minute mark to give Edmonton a 1-0 lead, and it was 1-0 Oil Kings after the first period there. And the other thing I should note here is that just in the first period alone, the Edmonton Oil Kings outshot the Calgary Hitmen 18-7 here, so could have been worse. Thanks, Jack, for keeping us in it. Then around in the second period here, about the 3-minute mark, Liam Keeler scored for the Oil Kings to give him a 2-0 lead. That was his second goal of the playoffs there. And then actually around the 10-minute mark, Carson Fook continued on his strong playoffs, as he definitely had a big Game 7 there. Scored his 5th goal of the playoffs here to put Calgary on the board, so it was 2-1 for Edmonton. So midway through the second period there, it was 2-1 Edmonton there. However, late in the second period there, Matthew Robertson scored to give the Kings a 3-1 lead after 2 periods there. So things were looking up for the Edmonton Oil Kings and not so for the Calgary Hitmen there. And then Calgary in the third period there got into some penalty trouble, where definitely didn't want to get into penalty trouble here, especially in the third period when we're trying to come back here. And that's in one of the penalties here, James Mounds, as his penalty was expiring. David Cope, just before the 16-minute mark of the third period there. So we're looking at late in the third period there. Dave Cope for the Edmonton Oil Kings scored to make it 4-1 for the Calgary for the Edmonton Oil Kings here. And then just after that goal, Jackson Vanderleest took a double minor there, and Carson Folk took a game misconduct penalty there. So any hope of comeback and have this thing tied at 1-1 going to Calgary was pretty much out the window here, and pretty much that was the final score for the Calgary Hitmen, as it was 4-1 for the Edmonton Oil Kings here, and had a 2-0 lead here going to Calgary here. That script sounds very similar to what happened in the last series with the Lethbridge Hurricanes, where we lost a tough one in overtime in Game 1. Game 2, we were outplayed and got into penalty trouble, so it was 2-0 coming home, down 2-0. So Calgary's been in this situation before here, so they're hoping maybe history repeats itself here. And as, once again, the Edmonton Oil Kings outshot the Calgary Hitmen in this game, 39-27. And Dylan Miskew outdueled Jack Benotton in this one. So, as just like the first round series here, the series shifts to Calgary, down 2-0 here. So, Game 3, Thursday, April 9th, the series shifts to Calgary here, as the game was at the Scotiabank Saddledome, 7 p.m. puck drop. Basically, what's said here is trying to maybe look at what happened with the Lethbridge Hurricanes, try to come back here. But as I mentioned, things didn't turn out that way in the opening here. But, this was definitely a close, tough game here, is when I recap here. As their Calgary Hitmen also actually got a boost in this game, as the last graduate who's been out for the last couple months here, Jake Krisky, actually draws into the lineup there. He had concussion problems here, and I think he was injured during the Corral series or just before, but I know he was hurt for basically much of the 2019 part of the season here, but maybe that was the boost that the Calgary Hitmen needed to get back into the series here. And all I say is the first period, it was very tentative on both sides here, because given the magnitude of the game, I mean, Edmonton coming in up to nothing here, and Calgary not wanting to make any mistakes here, or getting into penalty trouble here, because you're either going to be down 2-1 or 3-0 here, and it's a double-edged sword here. You got to either fight back or be almost out of it here, but no scoring to report in the first period, and for a Calgary Edmonton game, this was pretty tame, so nothing to really report on that. Things did open up a bit in the second period for the game here, and it was actually Zach Russell of the Edmonton Oil Kings at the 8-minute mark scored to put them up 1-0, and that was the score after 2 periods there. It was 1-0 Edmonton after 2 there. And then third period, the Calgary Hitmen were on their heels, knowing that they need to win this one or be down 3-0 here in the series if they don't win it. And Calgary did kill off a big penalty in the midway through the third period after Riley Fitter-Schultz had an extra boarding penalty in the roughing play there. So, I mean, expect that in a Calgary Edmonton game. Whistles have to scrum there, but that was a big penalty kill there, because this was a tight game. It was 1-0 for Edmonton here, and Calgary has struggled to score against Edmonton in the regular season, and definitely has been proven so far in the playoffs here. However, it wasn't until late in the third period, Mark Kashlik, the captain, he was definitely clutch on this play here, as at the 18:53-minute mark of the third period, he scored to tie the game, to make it 1-1, and force overtime here. And will overtime be friendly here for the Calgary Hitmen? Well, as you know, in the opening, not so, because in overtime here, the win was taken out of the sails by Wyatt McLeod of the Edmonton Oil Kings at the 2:46-minute mark. So all the 4 games that the Calgary Hitmen have been in the playoffs this year, they lost them all, but they've all been decided, within 5 minutes or less here. But at the 2:46-minute mark of overtime, Edmonton scores by Wyatt McLeod to make it 2-1 for the Edmonton Oil Kings, and more importantly, they took a commanding 3-0 series lead on the Hitmen here, and that goal was the only shot that occurred in overtime here. And this game was a lot tighter here, as Edmonton did have the slight edge in shots, and 29-25 here, but this was yet another tough, close loss for the Calgary Hitmen, which I'm going to say Game 1 and Game 3, could have went either way if things played out differently here. So could the Calgary Hitmen at least salvage something and avoid getting swept up with the brooms here? But unfortunately, that did not happen here, as Game 4 happened the next night on Wednesday, April the 10th here, and there was no way to salvage this, and heck, even in this game, the Calgary Hitmen, I think it was clear that they were definitely running on empty and out of gas here, because the Edmonton Oil Kings definitely dominated in this game, as Scott Atkinson scored the first goal just at the 5-minute mark to make it 1-0 for the Calgary Hitmen. Then Quinn Benjafield, late in the first period at the 18-minute mark, made it 2-0 Oil Kings, and that's how things stood after the first period there. So Edmonton was looking at wrapping this thing up in Calgary and have a nice little rest here, because the winner of this series was either going to take on the Prince Albert Raiders or the Saskatoon Blades, and was going to start on the road there, because that was a heavyweight matchup. And I'll get into the rest of the playoff situation in the WHL, because I waited for the second round to be totally completed before doing this video here. Anyway, back to the game here. Edmonton continued their dominance in the second period there, as Jake Neighbors, Mr. Neighbors, strikes again to make it 3-0 for the Edmonton Oil Kings just at the half minute mark, 7.5 minute mark. The Vince Levishow at the 5.5 minute mark, 5 minutes later, made it 4-0 for the Edmonton Oil Kings. And Wyatt McLeod, all these guys that scored these big goals, keeps piling on here. Made it 5-0 for the Edmonton Oil Kings at the 17-minute mark, and that's how things stood after 2 periods. It was 5-0 for the Edmonton Oil Kings, and in fact, the Edmonton Oil Kings really outshot the Calgary Hitmen 17-2 in the second period there. And then pretty much they just said thanks for everything to Jack Mandon, because he had the third period off, and they put Carl Stankowski in. And one more goal just happened in this game, and that also went to the Edmonton Oil Kings, as Andrew Frighton, his third at the 6-minute mark, gave Edmonton a 6-0 lead, and that's how things ended. That's what they sure wrote here, as they say. That's all, folks. As Porky Pig said, it was 6-0 for the Edmonton Oil Kings, and they swept the Calgary Hitmen 4-0 here. And this definitely wasn't a pretty way to end the season here, because the Oil Kings also shot the Hitmen 37-18, so on a 2-to-1 ratio there. And the tank was pretty much empty for the Hitmen there. I mean, I guess after an emotional comeback series against the Lethbridge Hurricanes, that was a great series. Unfortunately, this was a little bit of a letdown, not because we lost, but we got swept, and definitely got knocked around big time against the Edmonton Oil Kings here, and it wasn't much of a Battle of Alberta here. This was almost like, the early dynasty days with the Edmonton Oilers here. But despite all the scoring that the Edmonton Oil Kings actually had in this game, only Jake Neighbors and Quinn Benjafield were the only Oil King players that had multiple games, had a goal and assist. So they had balanced scoring throughout in this game, in the clinching game here. And despite the fact that the Calgary Hitmen lost this game 6-0 here, the one thing that the WHL usually does is that, how you can carry 3 20-year-old players here. Usually in the last game at home, the 3 players that are graduating get named, just as an honor, stars of the game for just, recognition, and wish them best of luck here. So, as I mentioned, Hayden Elder, Luke Coleman, and Jake Kriske are the 3 graduating players for the Calgary Hitmen this year. They were named stars of this game, just to honor them. And I'm going to say thanks to all you've done, and wish you best of luck in your hockey career and whatever you decide to do. But thanks for all they've done for the Calgary Hitmen here. And as I said, the Calgary Hitmen season, I still say, despite the disappointing end of the season, losing 4-0 to the Edmonton Oil Kings. I mean, as a Calgarian, it sucks to lose to Edmonton, but it was still a pretty good season overall. With the fact that we got back into the playoffs after being the third worst team in the league last year. I think looking back, we had a 19-point improvement from last season, and the fact that the season went from 72 to 68, so that's still a big turnaround. And I actually went to 6 Hitman games this year. The schedule made a lot more weeknight games, and that Corral series was definitely fun. Just to watch some live hockey in the old barn there before inevitably it gets knocked down and a piece of Calgary hockey history gets taken away. But that's my quick postmortem on the Calgary Hitman season. I didn't think this team had Memorial Cup written all over it there, but got back in the playoffs here, and we definitely have some nice pieces like Jagannaut and Carson Fook, and then we still got Mark Kaslik, who could still be back next year, and James Malm, and if Vladislav Yeremenko, I know he has property of the Nashville Predators, but he could still come back. And the other guy that Igor Zamula, the other defenseman there, he is property with the Philadelphia Flyers there. So we definitely have a couple of veterans that we can still build around for next season. And I say Steve Hamilton's got the winning track record. Heck, he used to coach the Edmonton Oil Kings and led them to the Memorial Cup back in 2014 there. So fortunately that storyline didn't come to pan out for Steve Hamilton haunting his old team here. But I think it's been a successful season overall for the Calgary Hitmen, and next season will actually be the 25th season for the Calgary Hitmen there, so it'll be interesting to see how they'll recognize and celebrate the silver year that actually Brett the Hitman Hart was one of the former owners and founders of the team that's inspired the name the Calgary Hitmen there. So that's just my quick postmortem there, and if I decide to do season 2 here, let's look forward to next season here. So anyway, looking around the league here, as I said, the winner of this series was going to either take on the Prince Albert Raiders or the Saskatoon Blades there, and those two teams were definitely tough teams in the East Division there, and one of the top teams in the league here. And actually it was the Prince Albert Raiders that beat the Saskatoon Blades in 4 games to 2 there, so it took 6 games for the Raiders to get past the Blades there. And actually it was a homer series up until Game 6 where the Raiders won on the road there. So you got the Prince Albert Raiders are going to take on the Edmonton Oil Kings after they swept the Calgary Hitmen. So they'll go on in the Eastern Conference Championship in the WHL there. And then you go out west here, another top team in the WHL actually had another sweep there. The Vancouver Giants swept the Victoria Royals 4 games to nothing there. So both top seeds, the Edmonton Oil Kings and the Vancouver Giants, are in the conference championships there, and the Vancouver Giants will be taking on the Spokane Chiefs there, as they actually pulled on a little bit of an upset here and beat the Everett Silvertips 4 games to 1 there. So your final 4 in the WHL championship to still alive to compete for the HNL Cup to represent the WHL and the Memorial Cup in Halifax is the Prince Albert Raiders and the Edmonton Oil Kings. They're going to battle out for the Eastern Conference, and the Vancouver Giants and Spokane Chiefs will battle out for the Western Conference there, and obviously the winners of those two teams of those series will battle out for the Edge North Cup and get a berth in the Memorial Cup in Halifax here. But however, I'm just focused on the Calgary Hitmen there, so you can stay tuned on WHL.ca, and I know Sportsnet also carries the Memorial Cup when that happens around the middle of May there. So I'm going to say, yeah, I mean, thanks for following me this whole season. I mean, got to 17 episodes here, and you know, it's been a fun, great season, all things considered. I mean, the other thing I always say, unfortunately, only one team really has a happy green garbage bag day, and when you have, you know, 20, 30 teams in the league there, it's a very minuscule amount that truly has a happy green garbage bag day there. But, you know, I'm going to say good luck to the 4 teams that are still playing in the WHL, and also say good luck to those who are still playing in the Ontario Hockey League and the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League, and you know, hopefully we'll at least have a fun World Cup here. I think in terms of any off-season news of the Calgary Hitmen here, it's unlikely given the nature of junior hockey here, and I mean, I don't think there'll be many major changes to the Calgary Hitmen. I made a quick video there where I combined the, you know, when they brought in Steve Hamilton as head coach, and then at the same time the Roughnecks decided to retain their staff here. So in the meantime, I think what I might do for the Calgary Hitmen is, if I decide to still, which I'll probably still do, recap the 2019 NHL draft from the Calgary Flames point of view, that if any Calgary Hitmen get drafted, I'll mention them in that video, but that's not going to be till the end of June there. So I'm going to say thanks for watching along. Thanks for my first season of recapping the Calgary Hitmen. I've casually followed the team, but I've definitely followed it a lot more closely with this video project here, and I'm going to say I have it all in my playlist, and starting from episode 1 when they started preseason up to episode 17 where this is the last episode for season 1 there, and episode 10 is where the Corel series in, and I had a couple of video takes on my Corel series there, which I'm going to still say that was the highlight of the season, just taking in that experience there. But, you know, I'm going to say thank you. Let's go Hitmen. Looking forward to doing this for season 2, unless I say otherwise, which will be the 25th season, the silver year for the Calgary Hitmen. But in the meantime, let's get behind our Calgary Flames, and hopefully they'll go on a nice long run to the Stanley Cup and hoist that thing in June, and hopefully the Calgary Roughnecks will find some consistency and go on a nice run to the NLL Cup, and then next thing you know, the Calgary Stampeders. My Calgary Stampeders this month, I plan to come back to season 2 there, and they have a cup to defend, the Grey Cup, as we won it last year in Edmonton, and you know, the big game is right here in Calgary, and wouldn't it just be awesome if, you know, Flames win the Stanley Cup, celebrate the Calgary Flames Stanley Cup victory and Calgary Stampeders Grey Cup victory, and then we win the Grey Cup at home in November there. I can dream. There's not against the law for me to dream, but anyway, I'll see you in the next video, whatever the next video to watch here, and if you're going to wait till next September for the Calgary Hitmen, I'll see you in September, and thanks for watching along, and see you in season 2 there. Thank you.